Himanshu Shah, please come on up. Himanshu is our Founder Circle member and the chairman of Shah Capital and Marius Pharmaceuticals. Himanshu. Then we have Ravneet Mann with Stride Ventures. She kind of commutes between London and New Delhi. Come on up, Ravneet. And last but not least, Sridar Iyengar with 360 Plus. He was, before that, the CEO of KPMG India and was a partner at KPMG USA as well, and London. Come on up, Sridhar. Okay, so now we're going to have these three luminaries kind of talk about the impact of the diaspora. They've seen the report launch. We want to get into some more of the details, what they've done, what they propose for India, how we can partner together. And Himanshu's had a lot of expertise in investing. He runs a global fund that invests across multiple countries. He's also done a lot of work with India. He's done a lot of work in philanthropy, and he's a man of ideas as well. So I want to start with Himanshu first to get his thoughts. You know, just fresh. He came at what, 3:30 in the morning. He still is keeping active. So what do you think, Himanshu?
First of all, it's great to be here. It has been 42 years since I came to Bangalore last time. So the city has changed quite a bit. As we heard earlier, that India is changing. I think there are a lot of things that we can, so let me start with what has happened. So I'm going to give you a perspective as an investor now. So if you look at the last 15 months, and if you look at what is going on in India, on the surface, it doesn't look so great. Rupee has come down 15%. Market is flat. You have foreign exchange reserves that have come down somewhat. But beneath the surface, I see a renaissance taking place. So let me itemize that for you. The first, and people talk about the India-Europe, the agreement that was signed in February, and which was a long time coming, which is going to be doing great service to the growth of India. But besides that, I think if you talk about the Deregulatory Commission that was set up by Modi last February, I think that's amazing in terms of what it's going to do to bureaucracy in India, which has been the biggest roadblock to the growth of the country. You also have Bhavya, which was started recently, which is a plug-and-play industrial. Basically you can just go in, you don't need to buy anything, and everything is set up for you to set up a unit. And this has not been done in India. There are already 4 clusters like this set up, including one in Karnataka. So if you really think about it, and again, the goal is to set up 100 of them. So ideally, I want to see, as I was talking to Raja earlier, India is full of ideas. It's the execution of it that is going to play a bigger and bigger role over here. You also have just amazing improvement going underneath on the skills, improvement. Because again, a lot of manufacturing has not been in India. India runs over $100 billion still today trade deficit with China, where the per capita income is 6 times India's. So why is that? Because of, again, the skill set. And again, there is an amazing improvement going on that front. So all in all, it's, it doesn't look great on the surface, but underneath, I'm very excited.
Thank you, Himanshu. Ravneet, I know you have a dual perspective of, Himanshu's US India, you are UK India. So and you focus a lot on the technology sector as well. Can you talk a little bit about that corridor, the technology and its ecosystem?
Sure. So MR, I think interesting thing about Stride, we're one of the, and I was having conversations with a lot of people last night as well. There's a lot of diaspora looking to give back over here. A lot of founders looking to tap into that diaspora, network, capital, experience, the playbooks that they can give. So, execution that you just brought up, right? How they can leverage all of that. But I think one thing that's unique about what Stride is trying to do is we're trying to go out and be an Indian fund manager that can look at regional deployment outside India. And how we're doing that is by ensuring that we are working very closely with diaspora and international institutional investors, giving them that comfort in home markets. And through that, being, that bridge so that they're able to have that comfort into what the Indian tech ecosystem and what the Indian investment landscape has to offer. We're the largest tech investor, when it comes to debt in the country right now, most active in terms of, the number of deals that we did last year. And through that, what we've really identified, MR, is the level of involvement and engagement that the diaspora has with the tech ecosystem. It's been fantastic. But are we able to leverage that not just as trust capital, but use it as fuel, as discipline, so that tomorrow, when we are looking at building that confidence outside with diaspora and institutional international capital, into not just backing fund managers that are of Indian origin externally, offshore, but also bringing them back to India and bringing that comfort. So we are trying to be that bridge, which is where I see a lot of, you were talking of the India-EU trade deal, the mother of all deals, $900 billion trade gap, corridor that's going to get unlocked. And what that is going to mean for the tech ecosystem, what that is definitely going to mean for manufacturing and AI, which is very important in that particular corridor. And that's what we're seeing a lot, even in cross-border investments, MR. The kind of deals that we're looking at, Indian origin founders based in the UK and Europe, looking at us as a first port of call because they just see us as more agile or friendly capital, as opposed to, a local color of capital over there. And that's really what, we need to see more of also, instead of only looking at inward, because what this would ultimately do, as a second-order enabler of diaspora capital, as an external-looking regional fund manager outside, we would really open the channels of cross-border corporate and trade relationships. So the next wave of market access for these Indian companies as they grow, they have a home base in terms of Indian fund managers that are domiciled there as well. And that creates a whole flywheel effect. But for all of that to take place, I think it's important to look at the entire story in entirety and not in a very myopic inward way, but more holistic.
Got it. Thank you. And Sridar, you have a very unique perspective because Sridar used to live in India, then he moved to the UK, then he moved to the US, and he's one of the few people that does more air miles than me. At one point in life, he used to come to India 26 times a year from the US. I have no idea how he did it, but he also have a commercial and a business connection, but also a personal connection. So how do you see that playing out? You're a diaspora leader, you've done business, but you've also have a personal connection and giving back. So can you take us through that and how others can look at you as inspiration?
This is on, right? Yeah. I think before giving any comments, I want to put my comments in context. Mine's a learned experience. I'm not here as an expert. I've learned a lot from my engagement with India over the last 30 years. And I've been involved in India development and growth in all areas, with company boards, as CEO of KPMG India, as global president of TIE, and also as running the AIF Clinton Fellowship, which focused on service to India. So that's where my learning of India and the engagement of the Indian diaspora comes from. So I want you to understand that in that context. And one of the things I found is that the best way that I, as a diaspora member, can, in fact, help India in its way forward is time. Money is available, we got to access it. But the most important thing, because I work from the grassroots level as well, some of my students are here, the students we support, is to actually give your time. That's the most important thing that the future people of India really need at that young level. They want role models. They may not have them in their own environment, whether they'd be in the US or in India. And that's what I tried to provide, to bring them, to give them the exposure, which is what I got. And all of us got, and we are here because of all that. And that's the most important thing. And the other thing I really cherish, that my colleagues in Silicon Valley at one time would use an epithet to describe me, and that was, you have become desi. You know, because I think I learned a lot. Rather than trying to give solutions which worked for there, I have tried to understand the needs here, and I've learned more from the people here than I would guarantee you that I've learned from the people over there. And that's something I've kept it in mind, is that, you know, there is enormous people with all the limitations and obstacles who have succeeded in India. They are the real role models that we could actually use. How do we circulate that and socialize that, democratize that, is what I want to do for this last chapter of my life. Thank you.
Thank you. Terrific, Sridhar. Such an inspiring perspective. And I couldn't agree with you more. Every time I come to India, I look at the new India and still the struggles of the old India. And honestly, I get depressed on the first day I'm here. I'm sure you might be viewing it the same way. But then when I talk to the people, that's when I get really excited. When I talk to the young people of India, that's what drives me to keep coming back. And so I agree with you on that wholeheartedly. The other thing you said on time, we did a survey in the United States on the diaspora's philanthropic endeavors. And on the money side, they were like the average American giver in terms of writing checks. But we found in terms of volunteer time, Indian Americans were giving twice as much as the average American. So that's another quality I think the diaspora has, is they can give more time. And I think, like you said, time is more important in this effort. So Himanshu, back to you. I know you allocate capital, you talk to investors, you run a fund. So how do you view some of the strategies on that side, of allocating your capital or telling other fund managers about how to allocate capital and what percentage would go to India, for example?
First of all, let's talk about the fund that was set up by the Indian government in 2016. It was $1 billion fund of fund. And that resulted in over 200,000 startups in India. And recently, a $1 billion fund was set up for AI and deep tech. So why am I talking about this when Myanmar is asking me how much money I'm going to put in India? I think it is related. Frankly, Indian government should be setting up 10 to 20 of these funds. Marine technology, space, drones, material science, and the list goes on. And bringing that public and private partnership on that, the diaspora can truly contribute, including myself. So that's one way. The other thing is this clusters that I was talking about and the industrial renaissance. So that's an interesting play. Actually, Bihar just started this thing this month. Actually, it's starting at the end of this month. Basically giving you free land if you want to set up a manufacturing unit. Uttar Pradesh is doing the same thing, and so is, I think, Orissa. Now, you have 3 states out of 25 or so that are doing this thing. Gujarat has something on that line. Now, that is very interesting. So I was talking to one of the company, which I own 2% of that. They are the largest titanium dioxide, which mainly goes into paint and sealants. So China has around like 65% of the capacity of the world, 65%. And this company is the largest outside China. They have a 10% market share. Now here's the thing about India. India's demand for titanium dioxide is 400,000 metric tons. And we, or the country, only produces 70, 80,000. Why? And by the way, it imports the rest from China. If you look at the cost of making that today, if you have a free land in some of the states that I mentioned, the project becomes very interesting. So this is just a sliver of what is possible in India if the government starts really working for the entrepreneurs instead of being an obstacle. It is still there. Believe me, I agree with MR, what he said. It is very frustrating. You need 27 forms to open a bank account in India, still today, in 2026? Doesn't make any sense. So there are a lot of things that this country needs to work on. But I see the signs of it. So something like that, I would be interested. So that's where the opportunity is over here.
Fantastic. Ravneet, over to you.
Can I just?
Yeah, please.
Because, Jay, well, I love your balanced approach. I think it's not so dismal a picture that I really felt the need to say that, when the government launched its fund of funds, 2019, that's when Stride also, when Stride launched in 2019, we were one of the beneficiaries of that. It was a small amount for our first fund, but if I fast forward to 6 years later, 2025, and I'll draw a parallel to what you see in India. We had the highest number of IPOs ever in a country, 300, right? If you go to 2019, when we set up, there were 2 venture-backed companies which had a public market cap of over $1 billion. Last year, 30 plus. You are seeing a lot of venture-backed tech investments that are now scaling up and growing big. You're seeing a flourishing IPO market, which is great for exits, which is wonderful for fund managers such as us. We had 2 IPOs ourselves last year, right? What I'm trying to say is we were a beneficiary of a very small amount in our first fund, humble beginnings for us from the government's fund of funds schemes, but that was catalytic. In the next 6 years, we were able to harness that, deploy effectively, and now reach a scale where we have over 1.6 billion in deployments. We are one of the first growth credit managers that have gone outward now and are deploying in the GCC, in the UK and Europe, backed by the respective domestic governments in those regions as well. What that is really bringing to the forefront in our conversations with them, I'm doing a lot of global fundraising for Stride, where you're able to see how you're working with the formal networks and the government corridors over there to harness that innovation as well as capital. And have that conversation back home where I know people like Nivriti are voraciously taking notes to, pass this information back on. So formalization is definitely happening here, but I think it's going to require patient capital as well.
Yeah. Sridhar, back to you on the personal side of giving time. How do you engage today? I know you have an organization called 360 Plus. I know some of your students, you have about half a dozen young Indians who are here as well, and I'd encourage the audience to meet with some of them and get to know them and try to see what you can do to help that community as well. So talk to us a little bit more about your personal project and what the impact has been.
Okay. I also want to say and to acknowledge that you see me wearing some glasses. Sometimes, this is the speaker's perspective. These are meta glasses. So if I occasionally go up here, with your permission, I may take some photos to share. MR, I think what I found was that it's an ocean out there. You can come at this from various angles. Because what the travel you mentioned, and the travel my daughter had, because of my travel too, the benefit they got from getting different perspective. Most of the constraints young people feel, in my view, are created in their own environment. They look at the environment, they look at the role models, they look at who's guiding them. But there are people whose role models and who self-constrained themselves is, this is all I can see. So we decided, my co-founder and I, 10 years ago after being involved with the American India Foundation Fellowship for 10 before that we will expand that horizon, take them away from the constraint. There is no locked box or room anymore for these young people. Let them come out and see what is possible. Then let them decide. And then my role is to support them in that process, not to tell them what to do. My daughter disabused me of that in 5th grade. He says, Dad, don't tell me what to do. I have never talked to her about grades. I've never told her what to do, but I said, I'll support you in whatever you decide to do, so long as you give it 100% or more. And that's what I have chosen as my personal philosophy. And I have found that it's actually starting to pay dividends. The kids who came in our first trip in 2015, who had no aspiration, they were the first ones to go to college, let's say, in their whole family. Now I notice the 3 or 4 of them actually did go to college. The kid who said that my only way out of my life in Chicago or East Palo Alto, was to join the army. Veteran was the way to get out of that. They are now starting to look at other options. And I think that, I viewed that as my personal mission in life, is to open their mind out to the different possibilities which exist for them. And India is I found such a lucrative area. We're the youngest nation in the world in terms of that demographics. And we should not waste it, somehow or other. And I said, if more diaspora members could get engaged with the youth of India, directly or through organizations which support them, that would be my advice.
Great. So Himanshu, back to you. Want to talk, one last question for all of you, is as a diaspora leader, what would you ask the diaspora to do in engaging with India, right? And the second, what would you like to see from the Indians here in the audience in terms of how they can engage with the diaspora? Just some thoughts on that.
So I think, we talked about remittances, which is a huge, almost 4% of India's GDP is contributed by diaspora. We talked about, the angel investing earlier, so that continues. I think one area, and philanthropy naturally on top of that, the job skills. And I really want to go back to that, and I think that's where diaspora, 35 million, at least 1 million of that, if from all around the world, if there is a public and private partnership, maybe as a 2047 initiative, that you can actually bring those people and give, whether it's in engineering, in science, in manufacturing. Because a lot of these people that moved out of India, they were engineers. And there are a lot of them in their 50s, 60s, and 70s are retired. They're looking for something to do. And this is what I think India can also do, play a very active role on that front. Because this country needs that skill set to make good quality products. There's a reason why it continues to import from China and all over the world. Because it cannot make those products at home. So that's where I see, and I think an event like this could play a big role in making something happen on that front.
Thank you. Ravneet?
I think, MR, this is a great step in the right direction to try and formalize the impact that the diaspora capital can bring in. And when I say capital, I mean it encompassing. It is a signal that there is a lot that can be achieved by having this, united, harmonized power of the diaspora capital to really propel, the tech ecosystem. I can only speak from my perspective, but extrapolating that to the larger country as well. Not just in terms of time, in terms of network, but even access to governance playbooks. Access to playbooks internally when you are working with a lot of your portfolio companies as well. As a GP, trying to fundraise externally, I think the diaspora has been extremely beneficial. We've got tens of millions of diaspora outside in incredible roles and positions that have opened a lot of doors for us. So it's more like an alumni network, outside if I were to draw a parallel. And it is incredibly impactful. We need to find a way to formalize it and have it tightly knit.
Sridar?
We're all agreeing on one thing, is that Indian diaspora, and I said, I left India in 1968. So I've been a diaspora member ever since. But in the last 30 years, I would say that I've spent half my time in India and half my time in the US with a lot of travel involved. And I found that that is the connection which has benefited both me and could benefit the diaspora members, is there are needs in this country which we don't see at that level, and what percolates up is basically the financial and economic ones which come our way, and that's one way to do it. But there are other things which we could do for India, and which actually will benefit us, and you mentioned seniors. Getting the seniors of India involved with their own, connect the old to the new would be the way to go, in my view, because that way everybody benefits. And the diaspora has got so much experience. And when you look at it, MR, you, me, and others, when we left India, we were also looking up to climb, you know? But the giving back of it, in my view, as I said, you got to always have one hand, that life is a continuous ladder. But one hand must always be reaching down to lift somebody else up. And that is what I see the diaspora's role. And I'll be very honest, I'm very passionate.
So in closing, one of the things I stood out in this report is the fact that the Indian diaspora's annual income is almost 1/5 that of India itself, if you kind of roughly translate GDP to income in a sense. And Geeta might opine on that more than I can. But 35 million people are making 20% of, let's say, India's income, right? So how can the diaspora really translate that success and help India? I think that's kind of what I'm left with, is some of it can be monetary, some of it is the personal connections and giving back. So I think time, money and time are both going to be needed for India to be a developed country at 100. So I want to thank Himanshu, Ravneet, and Sridar for this amazing panel. Thank you so much.